What's going on, guys? K-Dub here with another episode of Crypto Zombie. Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're having a great day today. Yes, I know it has been quite a long time, and I realize that a lot of you have been messaging me. I think I have like 50 to like 100 unanswered messages. My apologies. Everyone's been asking what's been going on, where have I been? Well, let me just do a little quick recap of everything that happened since my last video. All right, all jokes aside, yeah, it has been busy. There's been a lot going on, but I think it's time to start talking because ultimately, really, what we've been doing is we were really just trapped in this sideways, basically since the beginning of the year. I mean, you could go back here to March. We were bouncing around between 60 and 70. We fell below. We had this capitulation wick, which we did say that was a, that was a lot of buying pressure down here. And then we started noticing that the trend began to go up. And finally, once we had this retest here, we broke out. And another thing that I wanted to talk about was we were in this descending, broadening channel, right? Now, a lot of people were worried about this. They were concerned because we were putting in these lower highs, right? And we were putting in these lower lows, and they were like, oh, that's a negative pattern. But again, remember I had spoke about the descending, broadening wedge. And this is something that we've actually seen happen a lot in crypto. And as you can see right here, we did in fact have that breakout, right? So one thing that obviously I think is pretty apparent right now is it was a little tough, and we were saying that there probably wasn't going to be any major move until the elections. There was a lot of uncertainty, specifically in the US, and we know that the past 4 years have not been very productive, especially towards the approach to Bitcoin, the regulations, and it was highly suggested that if there was a Trump victory, we would see a pump. And literally when the news came out, we instantly saw price move to the upside, right? There was that sense of sort of relief, whereas we knew that if the election, let's say, had gone the other way, we probably would have seen a dump. Now, I just want to point out that, this is not a political channel. I'm sure you've seen enough politics. I very focused on just Bitcoin. No matter what happens, either way, we know that they're going to print money. They're going to turn on the money printer. And if you just look historically, really, no matter who wins, generally speaking, Bitcoin tends to take a break. And after the elections is when we tend to see a pretty big move. Another thing just to statistically point out is Q4 tends to be one of the best performing quarters for Bitcoin. I mean, you can see right here, the average Q4 performance is around 88%. So we're out of Q3, which is a little bit of a mixed bag, but really only about 5%. So, I mean, for the most part, if I didn't know anything about what was going on in the world, I didn't know anything about the elections, Bitcoin is actually surprisingly behaving the way that we would assume it would. But the difference is this time around, we now have a cryptocurrency president, right? That means whether or not, again, I'm not trying to polarize the viewers here, but I think we know that, Trump has been much more vocal about Bitcoin, about a strategic Bitcoin reserve, whether or not these promises come to fruition. I think for the crypto space as a whole, for these investors, for example, if we just come over here and have a look even at the DXY, we actually, although the DXY is still, having this downwards pattern, is, you could say that it still was pumping, which was interesting because we had the DXY strengthening, but we also had stocks. If you just want to look at the S&P real quick, the S&P was in this channel right here, and we had this nice support, and boom, right, bounce off right there. So basically, guys, what I want to talk about today is not go into all the things that happened. We've had plenty of opportunity. I believe what we saw over this very boring, drawn-out summer into the fall for Bitcoin was a accumulation period. But not only that, it was also for the weak hands to exit, right? When we had that wick down to 48, a lot of people were saying, screw this, I'm out. I don't want to be involved in crypto. So they sold out of their positions. And then you had the believers, those who stuck around, which, by the way, guys, at this point, if you're not in profits right now, I don't know, because I mean, we've had amazing opportunities in that 50 to 60, even 70K range to accumulate Bitcoin. But basically what you're seeing is the people that believed in it, the bigger institutions, some BlackRock news I'll get into, they were the ones that were accumulating. So in my opinion, being in that area for that long, having that much price distribution, accumulation, whatever you want to call it, but that much action in that price range, that is building a floor. And, just going back to the idea of the election, we do find out that, now, I'm not saying this has to happen. We've had a lot of things happen this year for Bitcoin, but historically speaking, you generally do not go below the price that we had on that election day. Now, it could just be a coincidence, right? We don't have like decades of data. We do have 15 years worth of data though, which is obviously more than just a fad. So, realistically speaking, you spend that much time in that area, you have a breakout, the weak hands have sold, the believers have bought. Most likely this thing is going to start going. It's probably going to have some legs. Now, of course, we have until January, until the official inauguration. So, could we have some choppiness until then? Of course we can, but remember, Santa Claus rally, that's a real thing. Q4, that's a real thing. So I just want to go over sort of some broad things today, show you guys some clips. I'm actually winging this. There's no script today because it's been a while. I miss you guys. I love you. Thank you again for all the support. If you want to comment, it's going to obviously help. YouTube does not like when you stay away from making content for far too long. I do just want to say a few things because I have to mention that if you guys are unaware, the Blowfin War of the Whales is actually happening in 2 days. If you guys are interested, you could check that out in the link below. You can join. I think they gave me a team. I'm more of a swing trader, so I don't expect you guys to join my team specifically, but check it out. There's a lot of good traders out there, a lot of guys that I follow, and there's tons of prizes and awards. And another thing is, many people have been asking me about decentralized exchanges because let's be honest, KYC has gotten ridiculous, and a lot of the exchanges that we used to be able to participate on really, it's moving into a sort of decentralized area. So Antarctic Exchange, they have their testnet right now. But the only reason that I'm bringing this up is number one, you can actually practice using a paper account, right? So you're not going to lose any money. You can play with free money just to kind of mess around if you're new to trading. But the other cool thing about Antarctic is that they are completely decentralized and they're doing something that I really kind of haven't seen before. So they do have a token, right? And I'm not trying to shill a token. You do what you want, guys. But what's cool is you can actually get rewards, by trading and participating, or eventually when the token generation events comes out, you can buy the token. But it's not really about the token itself. It's the fact that, these exchanges, right? They make money off of fees. They don't care if you win. They don't care if you lose, right? They're just making that fee on the trade itself. Well, this is really the first opportunity where if you hold the token, you stake the token, you actually get, I don't know what it is I want to say it's like 50%, maybe 55, something around there, percentage of the total distribution. So even if you don't want to be a trader, you don't want to trade yourself, if you come over here and you participate or you buy the token eventually when it comes out, I believe the token generation event is in a couple months, anyone that trades on this, even if you are not a trader, if you hold this token, you can actually get basically for supporting the network, you can basically get those rewards and you'll get a percentage of everybody's volume trading. So it's kind of like a community exchange. I'll be talking more about this in a bit. I think decentralization DEXs are probably going to be a lot bigger thanks to the KYC. Okay, so that's kind of like getting that out of the way. I got the links below in the description for that. If you guys want to sign up using the code, you do get bonuses, et cetera, et cetera. Thank you guys. You support the channel and hopefully you benefit from the bonuses as well. So let's get in here and just let's talk about everything, actually. The first thing I want to talk about is 99.95% of Bitcoin addresses are now officially in profit. So there's a lot of people in a lot of profit, but you know what's going to end up happening is that FOMO. And FOMO is arguably worse than fear, right? Fear, okay, we're all sad, we're all losing money, everything's terrible. But FOMO, that fear of the idea of somebody else doing better, somebody else making gains while you're sitting on the sideline, this is when these markets start to get absolutely insane, right? And I mean, come on, you've seen this meme. I'm not buying that at 49K, and then at 77K, I'm an idiot. Why didn't I buy? But the thing about Bitcoin is that it's been able to show us that over the long-term period of time, sure, it could be volatile, in the short term, but in the long term, it always is the better play. That's actually what Anthony Pompliano was talking about over on Fox when people tend to say it's too volatile. Well, what's your time horizon?
The volatility on this thing is way too high for anybody to call that a savings account. I mean, you may like it, but I think that's a bridge too far right now, isn't it?
Over the last 30 years, the US dollar has lost 50% of its purchasing power. So in my lifetime, $1 now buys you 50% or 50 cents of service and goods. And so when you think about that, the most volatile asset that most people hold is the dollar, and they're on the wrong side of volatility. Bitcoin, on the other hand, over a long period of time appreciates. And so the best statistic to look at this is in 2016, the average median home was about $380,000. I'm sorry, $280,000. Today, it's over $400,000.
Right.
So 50% increase in the average home in America. During that same 8-year period, it used to cost 664 Bitcoin to buy that home. Today, it costs 6 Bitcoin. it has been a 99% reduction in the cost of a home in America if you held Bitcoin. And so another way to think about that is if you had about $5,000 of Bitcoin in 2016, today it could buy you a house.
Probably today, as you guys could tell, I'm going to be doing a lot of clips. I want to share a lot of stuff that I've been looking at. That's sort of been the staple of this channel. I like to share the journey. I don't pretend to be a master guru, although I have been around this space, I would say, longer than most, but I like to show the data, and the data is showing us right here. If you look at the iShares Bitcoin Trust ETF, it has officially surpassed the net asset value of the iShares Gold Trust. So this is pretty incredible, because when people talk about, Bitcoin being digital gold, Bitcoin overtaking gold, and everyone says that'll never happen, that could never happen, Bitcoin will never surpass the market cap of gold. Well, you know what, guys? Baby steps, because they also said that a nation state would never put it on their balance sheet, or like a CEO of a company or a president would never embrace it, or we would never get an ETF. And all of those things have happened. And as you can see right here, no, Bitcoin is clearly not higher than gold, although it is moving up. I believe it did just pass Meta. I think Bitcoin just passed Meta for the number 8 spot global all around. Gold still obviously at part 1, at the number 1 spot. But right here on just the ETF, you could see that it has officially now become more interesting, more appetizing to these investors than gold. And I would argue to say that this is just the beginning. Now, I dare say the words "we're early" because, I'm not early. We're not early. Early is buying Bitcoin at $1. Early is buying Bitcoin at $20, right? So are we early? No, but I don't believe that we're part of the late majority. I still think there's a lot of people that are still kind of, they're getting in their ears. I mean, I talk to people still nowadays, knowing what I do, knowing that I've been in crypto for, 8+ years, they still think it's fake. They still don't believe it. They still don't understand it. And I mean, I just say to them, most people don't understand how a car works, right? Most people couldn't fix their car if it broke down. They're not mechanics, but you drive it every day, don't you? There's obviously people who are smarter than you and I who understand the mathematics behind crypto and Bitcoin. And, talking about the gold thing, VanEck CEO says Bitcoin's value could be half of gold. I mean, I think it could surpass it, and where would that end up bringing it?
You're probably asked as much as I am if Bitcoin's going to 100,000 next. What would you say?
I think Bitcoin's going to hit all-time highs. It hit them today, and I think it's going further, right? My basic premise is that ultimately Bitcoin's value will be half of that of all the gold outstanding. So you're talking about something like $300,000 for Bitcoin.
Why only half the value? Why not a quarter of the value, or pick some other random number?
Well, because maybe I'm more balanced. I think if I were a Bitcoin maximalist, I would say it would overtake gold. But I think that's like a reasonable base assumption. It's clear, one of the big winners this year is individual investors have really piled into the Bitcoin ETFs. And I think as individuals, as a constituency, they were important in this election. The loss by Sherrod Brown of his Ohio Senate seat, the fact that Trump went to the Bitcoin convention shows that there's a big constituency in the U.S. and hopefully it becomes a bipartisan issue as well, not so one-sided.
So again, it seems like it's not possible until it is, right? Nobody believes it until it happens. Nobody thought the ETF would be real until it actually happened. Nobody thought Bitcoin would break 20,000. 30,000, 40,000, 50, 60, 70, until it happened. So 100,000, pie in the sky, well, until it happens, right? And, talking again, and again, I try to stay neutral politically, but Donald Trump has been more vocal about Bitcoin. I mean, he went to the conference, he spoke, he talked about a strategic Bitcoin reserve, and you could see that the German parliament member, Joanna Kotar, says that if the US starts buying Bitcoin as a strategic reserve, then I think all the European countries will get FOMO as well. Now, can you imagine when these countries start going into this sort of FOMO race of, well, we got to get more Bitcoin than them. We got to mine more Bitcoin than them, right? And, don't forget, this isn't something, at first Trump was very anti-Bitcoin, but let's be honest, that's kind of how everybody starts out. I mean, I was anti-Bitcoin when my friend told me about it in college. He was mining it on his laptop, and I was laughing at him. By the way, you know who you are. I hope you held on to that. I do hope he held on to that laptop because he was mining Bitcoin. Had to be like 20 cents at the time, nuts. But, eventually you come around to it, you learn it, you embrace it, and that side note, guys, that's the ability to move forward in life, right? Not to blame other people for your mistakes or things like that. It's okay to be wrong. and it's okay to be presented with new information, and it's okay to learn. Because had I, held my stance of anti-Bitcoin, this was like 10 years ago, right? Actually longer than that, actually. I was in college. Then I wouldn't be here where I am today. I don't know if you guys remember this, but here's just a quick clip of Trump. This isn't new, but, he was talking about Bitcoin.
Who knows? Maybe we'll pay off our $35 trillion, hand him a little crypto check, right? We'll hand him a little Bitcoin and wipe out our $35 trillion.
But how do you want it to be more prominent in America? How will that work?
Oh, it's going to work easily. It's already prominent. It's moving along. It's very loosely regulated. That's one of the reasons it's moving along. But it is a different form of a currency, and it's going to end up benefiting the country. But if we shut it down, like, Biden's trying to shut it down, Biden doesn't have the intellect to shut it down. Can you imagine this guy's telling you to shut something down like that? He has no idea what the hell it is. But if we don't embrace it, it's going to be embraced by other people. It's a massive thing already. Did you read where it's bigger than any company in the world already? I mean, if you look at the market, it's bigger than many countries. It's a very big thing. If we're not going to be the leader, we have the people that are the leaders. I know some of them. They're very smart. And if we don't embrace it, other countries are going to embrace it. Other countries will anyway. But we can be the leader, and we might as well be the leader.
And I think one of the things that's really going to be different this time around, I know it's going to be different this time, right? I'm sorry, I just assume there's always going to be a comment like that. But, the SEC has been extremely ridiculous, right? They have done everything in their power to be selfish, to only care about money, and to basically keep the area of crypto so gray, so that we don't know what's going on, that they just keep issuing these Wells notices, and they're raking in the fines, they're raking in the fees, but that is about to come to an end. SEC policies and approach to crypto have been a disaster, according to Mark Ueda. And by the way, I don't know, this could be rumors, but, remember he said on day one he's going to fire Gary Gensler. I wonder if Hester Pierce would actually step up. But, you could see the disappointment in just the standing members now.
What is the SEC doing regarding crypto?
Well, I think our policies and our approach for the last several years have been just really a disaster for the whole industry. We have been setting this policy through enforcement. We've done nothing to provide guidance on it. And as a result, this is being shaped by the courts. And different courts have ruled different ways. I think what this Wells notice is, and while I won't comment on the specifics of this litigation, the Wells, what has gone on is part of a broader frustration with the fact that we have not provided interpretive guidance as to what you can and cannot do.
And I know I'm a little off topic here, but getting back to the idea of this race for Bitcoin, race to accumulate Bitcoin, right? You start thinking about all these other countries, and it's unfortunate that some of the policies have pushed some of these away, weaponizing the dollar, not trying to point fingers here. You've seen 6 new members or 7 new members, whatever it is, joining the BRICS nations. And what are they doing? Well, guess what? They are already mining Bitcoin with government resources.
Yeah, it's a non-U.S. asset. It's an emerging markets asset. And while we were all hyperventilating about the election over the last week, BRICS had a conference in Russia. There's 6 new members of BRICS this year. So BRICS GDP is now greater than the combined GDP of G7. Of the 6 new members, 3 of them, Argentina, the UAE, and Ethiopia, are now mining Bitcoin with government resources. So there is tremendous urgency outside of the U.S. to find a way to circumvent the irresponsible fiscal policy that we've been running here in the U.S. In fact, Russia announced an initiative. Their sovereign wealth fund is going to invest in a regional initiative to build Bitcoin mining and AI infrastructure throughout BRICS with an idea of settling global trade in Bitcoin. So look, someday, I don't know if it's 5 years, 10 years, Putin's going to die. We're going to look to reintegrate some of these countries into the world financial system, and they're going to be trading with Bitcoin. What are we going to be doing?
But it's probably just a fad, right? It's okay, all right. It's not a fad. I think it's pretty obvious that Bitcoin is here to stay. I still stand by the fact that we're going to see $1 million Bitcoin in our lifetime. I would never sell my entire stash. I mean, it literally is a insurance policy against everything, and again, no matter who's in office, it doesn't matter who wins. At the end of the day, Bitcoin is originally it was created to opt out of the system, right? And it is basically inversely related, which is actually funny because the dollar's pumping pumping, Bitcoin's pumping anyway, and they're going to keep printing money. It's not just the US, it's every country in the world. It's fiscal policy. You look at the M2 chart, Fred shuts it off. They don't want you to see it anymore, right? They got rid of it. And, anyway, but I digress from that. I wanted to also just talk about, the fact that I think it's also that the country, or at least the investors, are feeling a little bit safe, because it kind of felt like for a while the U.S. was isolating itself, right? The U.S. was kind of like destroying the value of the dollar, which I suppose is kind of like baked into the idea anyway, because inflation is the hidden tax. But, Joshua Jake, he goes on for about a minute. I'm sure you guys have seen him on TikTok. And, he talks about the effect of just how the world has responded in pretty much just the past few days.
Donald Trump's not even president yet. Have you seen what's happened in the last 48 hours? The misogynist appoints the first ever woman to be chief of staff. The Taliban announced they want peace with America and to be taken off the terrorist list. Putin came out and said that Western civilization is not an enemy. Mexico has started securing the border in, of course, response to tariff threats. Saudi Arabia is kicking out all of their Hamas leaders. New York is cleaning up their illegal migrant crisis. Xi Jinping came out and said he wants to peacefully coexist with China and said that they respect American people. The European Union chief finally came out and said, hey, America, can we start buying LNG from you so they stop buying from Russian gas? Putin says he takes Donald Trump's plan to end the war with Ukraine very seriously, and Russia supports it. The Houthis are stepping back. The Hamas called for an immediate end to war. He's calling for term limits from Congress so that way people like Nancy Pelosi stop being forever members. Stock markets and crypto hit all-time highs.
So, okay, that section might have been a little bit more on the political end, which I said we do try to steer clear of, but I still think it all ties in to the overall connectivity of the world, the value of Bitcoin, the velocity of money. And, Tom Stratt, for example, he was over talking, where was this on? I believe CNBC. And, he talks about this idea of if we did potentially have Bitcoin as a reserve asset, could it help fix the deficit? I mean, my guess is we've had a lot of time. I mean, it seems like we're printing more. I mean, what was it? Just a couple of years ago, we printed 40% or something of all dollars in existence. But it is something to think about. And it is something that I believe that more people are slowly moving towards.
When we look at all the deltas,
And you saw it in the Trump trade,
yes.
And you saw it in Bitcoin.
Correct.
And you saw it in sectors of the market that would benefit from,
that's right.
Presumably, but who knows, from a Trump presidency. So 1,500 points out of the gate.
I think we need to respect this move. I mean, there was a tremendous rally post-election, and it continued yesterday. I think it really does reflect a lot of money was taken out of the market because of the uncertainty around the election. And now we know that because of policy changes and animal spirits, that this is really going to benefit things like Bitcoin and small caps and regional banks and financials. So I do think there's still a lot of upside. I mean, small caps trade at 10 times median forward earnings. I mean, I think part of the reason investors are getting somewhat optimistic is that President Trump is entering office again, but this time with a lot more knowledge of how to build a cabinet and a team. And so in some ways, this would end up being more market friendly. And I think that's why investors are becoming optimistic. I mean, I kind of agree with the idea that there are animal spirits growing.
So you were at 150, I think, on Bitcoin, weren't you? But
yeah.
Not necessarily by the end of this year, or?
I think 6 figures is still possible before the end of the year, yeah.
And then more next year and the year after?
Yeah, I think because now, post-halving and now Bitcoin's becoming a lot more relevant, and I think maybe the regulatory overhang is diminishing, that there's a lot of upside from here, yes.
All right, guys, I didn't want to save the boring part to the end. I know everybody, for some reason, when I start with the charts, I lose people. I don't know why. The charts are really the thing that speaks the truth because it's just numbers and values. But I do want to show you a few things that I've been looking at on this chart. So we know previously when we look at the Fibonacci extensions, right, Bitcoin tends to break through the 0.618, 0.786, and you can see we had, a top right here at 1, and then we extrapolated this data and projected it into the next level. And you can see, actually, it's really crazy how these really support these areas, right? You can see right here. I mean, look at this beautiful test here, right? This was the fake out dump on the announcement. So keep in mind, back here is when the ETF was announced. This is where we are right now. So everyone that was out there that's saying the ETF is going to be bad for Bitcoin, well, I think history has officially proven that wrong. That theory has been proven wrong. But the cool thing is that now that we've entered into this price discovery, hold on guys, it's been a minute since I've done these charts live. You got to give me a second here. You could see that, our next area is the 1.618. We have absolutely no resistance in this area. So outside of a black swan event or something crazy happening, this suggests to me that, we should ultimately end up at least at some point, I don't know if it's going to happen this year or early next year, but we should see Bitcoin at least test the $102,000 area. So even at this point, getting in, it's around a 34% increase. And the other thing too that I wanted to point out was, if we have a look at these moving averages right here, what you wanted was to see the lowest to the highest. So you have the 200 to the 100 to the 50 to the 20. And you can see right here, once we had that happen, it was off to the races, right? And I talked about this golden cross right here, okay? And that's basically where we had this major pivot. And now what do we have? We have the 20, we have the 100, we have the 50, and we have the 21 exponential. So that basically is telling me that we have massive, massive acceleration to the upside, right? You could see the super guppy remains intact. And obviously, historically, once we start to get that flip on the green, we tend to stay there for a very long time. You could argue again, COVID, black swan, but like I've always said, if you kind of just scribble this out, I think that without COVID, this would have remained, right? So we don't have a black swan event, but my point is you could see it remains in this area for a very long time. The other thing is if we look at the market cipher, we actually have money flow starting to curve up to the inside. So that is showing us that money is coming in and the money is reaching the previous high peak. So if we come back here and we kind of look at, where was the last area where we sort of had the money, I guess it's a little bit of a different chart, but sort of right here, okay? And we draw a line up here, that's kind of like saying that we're sort of here in this move, but that's where we are here right now. Now, obviously diminishing returns, I don't know if Bitcoin's going to go that high, but I will say that the momentum is clearly moving to the upside, right? And you can see there's a little bit of a difference because when we came into this area right here, we had this bounce, we came up and we were retesting the EMA ribbon. We're doing that right now, but we're doing it with a lot more conviction, with a lot more force, and also with this insane capitulation wick. Now, I just want to show you something. So this is just, kind of textbook trading 101, but when you tend to see the wicks from the top coming down, that's usually intense selling, kind of like we saw here, right? That might have signaled to us maybe that was enough for that move. But ever since then, we've had buying, minimal wicks to the upside, massive wick to the downside. It's actually called a tail, but I just call it a wick. And this is a little bit of an indecisive candle. Massive buying here. Look at this. Big sell down. That's what freaked people out. But what did we end up doing? If I go all the way back to the chart I showed you, where's the chart I showed you right in the beginning? Let me just get rid of all this here. What I did show you was what you had was a massive bounce, right? You had indecision on the line and you had a massive bounce while you also have an upward sloping 50 and a 200 that's also looking to slope up as well. This is going to provide massive support. So, as this line continues to move up, even if Bitcoin does come down, there's a very good chance that you find support on that level. And again, historically speaking, we generally do not see Bitcoin really ever get down to some of these lowest levels. And if you wanted to talk bear case scenario, well, the 89 is sitting at about 50,000 and rising. So what am I trying to say at the end of this video? I know it was a little bit long today. I haven't had a chance to get these videos out. Pause the video, rewatch it. Again, share this with a friend. I'm going to be try to make some more updates for you guys. But ultimately, for the most part, the momentum is to the upside. The excitement is to the upside. Could we have consolidation? Could we have a pullback? Yes. But, you don't sit in a range. You don't sit in a range for basically an entire year to then just have one little fake out. It's not how it goes. If we were sitting in a range for a year and we broke to the downside, I would be saying the opposite. I would be saying this is not good. We're probably in for a bear market. We did the literal opposite. We sat in a range for a year and broke to the upside and tested and had a bounce off of that. So, whether you use the indicators, market cipher, however you guys trade, everything is showing us that the likelihood, of course, anything can happen, black swan, I'm not perfect, but the likelihood of a continuation to the upside, plus the fact that Bitcoin is historically known to have green Q4s, and a lot of our all-time highs tend to get put into the ends of the years. Not all of them, but like 2020, for example, that was, believe is December 17th or something like that. So arguably Q4 You know, we had the election results. Cryptocurrency people are majority pro-Trump. A pro-Bitcoin, pro-crypto administration. We have these people across the world coming together saying that it's now becoming a strategic race to mine Bitcoin, to own Bitcoin. We have BlackRock doubling down. I actually had a couple articles I meant to show you guys about BlackRock doubling down and their inflows, but we could talk about that another time. I think this video's gone on long enough, but I think the point I'm trying to make is, you know, so there's that market mentality where, like, when everyone's bullish, it's time to be bearish. When everyone's bearish, it's time to be bullish. This is not one of those scenarios. This is a scenario in which most people are bullish, and there actually is a good reason right now to be bullish, right? When you start hearing people say, you know, $1 million Bitcoin, or we're going to have a 10-year bull market, or, you know, I'm never selling ever, then we'll get a little bit concerned. But we haven't even seen the Bitcoin top roll into the altcoins. The altcoins are usually that exit strategy to milk the last out of it. When we see all of that happen, I'll let you know. I've only had about 3 phone calls from some friends. Last year, my phone was ringing off the hook, so we're not quite there yet. I think there's still a lot of opportunity to make money. And side note, good to see you guys. Really great to be back. Hope you guys are having hope you guys had a great summer, had a great year. I'm going to be traveling actually this weekend, but maybe I'll be able to make some updates in the hotel. Get subscribed, turn on bell notifications. And remember, if you guys do want to learn how to trade, you can check out the tutorials. Also, if you want a decentralized exchange, the TESTNET is live now for Antarctic. You could sign up below and take advantage of those the tokens. If you want, you can earn some. You don't have to buy them. They're literally, you can just earn them. You could use fake money, practice your trading if you want, and ultimately earn. Once this exchange gets going, you'll earn the percentage of the trading fees of all the traders. So it's kind of cool because it like gives back to the traders. And then of course, you know, as I said, we do have the Blowfin War of Whales going on. But that's it for me, guys. Thank you so much for coming back to the channel. You rock. You're the reason that I make these videos. Unfortunately, I can't say every single day like I used to, but I'm going to try to make as many updates as possible. Again, check out these tutorials popping up right here, right now. I love you guys. Hope you're doing well. Sorry this video was so long. Until next time, stay crypto. And of course, peace out.